This episode is brought to you by Envision Studio, the world's most powerful screen design tool. Unlock new dimensions of screen design with Envision Studio's adaptive layout engine, rapid prototyping, advanced animation, shared design systems, and more. Visit userdefenders.com/studio to get early access.
The landscape has changed so much from when our parents were growing up. It really was pick me, and there were so many gatekeepers that you had to get around. And I've done a lot of hiring and a lot of advice for friends who need jobs. And I always say, your resume, it's the story that you decide to tell. It's not great because somebody else said it was great. It's great because of what you got out of it and how you decide to frame your experience.
Welcome to the User Defenders podcast, where we interview UX superheroes who fight for the users in order to inspire and equip you to do the same. And now, here's your host, Jason Ogle.
Greetings, User Defenders. Welcome to episode 48. I can't believe we're almost at 50 episodes. I've got something special planned for episode 50. I hope you enjoy it. Today, I had the great privilege of speaking to one of my super panelists at an event apart Denver. Her name is Cassie McDaniel. Cassie is a deep well of inspiration, drawing from many years of experience in design, creativity, and design leadership. She's a really well-rounded designer who has such a strong comprehension of the seldom lauded, softer side of skills as well. This is a really fun and enlightening one, Defenders. I hope you enjoy it and feel empowered as much as I did after listening to it. I want to share an iTunes review that came through recently. This one was by Hilarious777. This person said, "Excellent!" 5 stars. Each episode I've listened to has imparted wisdom. Great guests. This is not just a UX design podcast. This podcast offers lots of humor and life knowledge. Thank you so much for leaving that review. That really delights me to know that you're actually getting a lot more out of it than just design, which design is important. It's certainly a pillar of this podcast. But I think design and being a great designer also extends into many other areas of life, including personal growth and development. So glad that you are also finding it humorous. That is part of the mission as well, to be enlightening and entertaining. So thanks so much for leaving that review. Defenders listening, I would be honored and delighted if you would do the same and go to userdefenders.com/review to really help me keep fighting on in this podcast. It also helps new designers find this podcast as well. Thank you so much in advance. Cassie McDaniel runs a small, ambitious, friendly design studio with her husband called Jane and Jury. As previous design director at the Mozilla Foundation, she led a team of designers on the organization's advocacy and digital literacy fronts. She founded the interview series Women in Tech and runs a creative event and workshop series called Paris Lectures. She grew up in Florida, jumped around in England, and is now based an hour outside Toronto in rural Ontario, where she is deeply invested in the roots she puts down into her community, both locally and online. And I had a fun fact about you, but I forgot to include it here, Cassie.
That's okay.
Oh my gosh.
It wasn't that fun. I can tell you what it was.
Okay.
Do you remember?
I have it now. I have it here, but
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just the two other sides of my life that were very large parts of my life were writing. And so I published poetry and short stories a few years ago. So you could still Google me and find things that I've written online. And I was also a collegiate athlete. We went to nationals when I was in college. I played water polo, and we won. We got third place in nationals.
That's right.
So, and I was a starter on that team. So I'm still really proud of that, even though I don't practice water polo anymore. But it's kind of a badass, kind of hardcore part of my life that I think is still deeply embedded.
I would say so. I think that's probably one of the most physically taxing sports around. Would you agree?
I would agree. And it can be quite violent. I think it's more violent in the male sport than in the female sport, but
oh my goodness,
it's certainly aggressive and very competitive and really intense. You know, you're constantly swimming. So it's very high endurance and strategic. It's a very strategic game, which I really like, and quick. So I think all of those things have contributed to the way that I compete I would say. I don't think I'm as competitive as I used to be, but all of those things are part of how I think about working in teams and being aggressive, but not, but in a constructive sort of way.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think that, there's things out there that kind of light a fire under us and help us to make a difference. So I think there's good things to that about kind of that competitive edge. And frankly, I wish that somebody would have a more competitive edge on music options out there for online music, because I'm really getting sick of Spotify's UX.
Yeah, sure. I hear you. I hear you. And then I included the other one, the poetry publishing, because you don't always, we think of things in such broad buckets and we stereotype people, and you don't think of an athlete as being a gentle soul or vice versa, right? So I think it's important to be well-rounded. I think that might become a theme of our conversation, thinking ahead, but we'll see.
I have a feeling it will be, Cassie, because you are a fascinating designer and person and individual. And I know we've only met once recently at the Invent Apart conference in Denver, which was amazing. And thank you for being on the panel, which was incredible, by the way. I will be releasing that fairly soon here, Defenders listening. So yeah, I will be releasing it. And it could even come out before this, because I got a couple episodes before this time. But anyway.
Oh, cool.
Great time. But I've done a lot of reading. I've done a lot of research, and you're fascinating, Cassie. And that's why I'm so glad you're here, because I know you have a ton of value to offer. You have you've got that creative brain and also that tech brain. So it's like you're kind of a rare breed. to have both sides of that kind of. So I definitely want to dive a lot more into that. So yeah, every superhero, Cassie, has a secret identity and origin story. Let's talk about yours. We talked a little bit, but I'd like to start the show by you taking a few moments just to give us a look into your personal life. Like what kind of things you like to do when you're not working. Tell us about your family a little bit, things like that.
I feel like I'm a pretty open book. A lot of my recent life over the past 10 years or so is on the internet. And who has time to read through all that? But it's, I'm very open, and a lot of people are very private about their lives, but I'm really not. And I integrate my life into the way that I work and what I do. So right now I run a studio with my husband, Mark. It's called Jane and Jury. And we work out of our home. We have a small studio at home that we've converted our basement space into a meeting room and a little design studio with a couple of desks. And we have our kids at home. So I've got a 4-year-old daughter who just started school this year and an 18-month-old daughter. And so they are home with us, except for when our oldest is in school. They're home with us 24/7. We don't have daycare or anything. We run our business. We swap out for childcare. It's kind of, we literally tag hands and take over. Whoever is not working is watching kids and vice versa.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's pretty much runs our life right now. It is very, very intense, but we wouldn't have it any other way. I also have a frame shop. So I do some picture framing. The other half of our basement runs that part of our business. So it's really just to get off the computer and do something more hands-on, and I enjoy doing it. So we have that going on too. And we run an event series sometimes called Paris Lectures, and we were doing workshops for a little while. We've kind of stopped doing that for a bit. But we're very, we volunteer as well. We volunteer for our kids' school. We volunteer for other local initiatives. We have a lot of local clients right now, although we're trying to branch out and do some bigger stuff now that we have a bit more time. But yeah, so time is kind of runs our lives, my life. It all kind of mishmashes into one. And we are totally at the discretion of time. Oh. I think as we've gotten older, we've realized that life is really about resource management. And if you take away from one section of your life, then, you're giving it somewhere else. And if you're giving it to someone else, then it's literally taking away sleep or time for dinner or something like that. So we're a lot more precious with the kinds of things that we put on and take on. But yeah, that's life. My family is all down in Florida. And Mark's family is all in Switzerland and England. So we do everything ourselves. We don't, besides our neighbors and friends, we really kind of do it all ourselves. We don't have, parents that babysit or that sort of thing.
Do you have some friends that'll like cover for you guys to go on dates and stuff like that?
Occasionally, not super often. We actually have made a lot of older friends here, which is interesting. So, and some of them never had kids, so they're kind of surrogate grandparents for us. And we do babysit swaps, and
that's cool.
All of this is kind of mundanely logistical.
Nice.
But it might be interesting to some of your listeners who have.
Yeah, well, I think it shapes us, right? I mean, all of our paths shape who we are, and it shapes our output as well, our creative output. And speaking of that, I know that where you guys live, you moved to Paris, Ontario. How long ago was that?
About 3 years ago.
Okay, so fairly recently.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I get the sense that it's made a pretty big impact on both you and your husband and your work. And I'm really curious, I'd like to know how living in a small town and an inspiring town has affected your creative outputs.
Sure. Well, I will say, it's a very small town. It's 10,000 people. It is only an hour and a half from Toronto. So any kind of creative juice that you need is just a drive away. But it's pretty quiet. It's pretty sleepy. It's pretty rooted in the way that things have always been done. And that's what's kind of nice about it. It's not changing all the time. The people that you meet here are in it for the long haul. You develop real relationships with them that are lasting. We've met people on the street here that have become our best friends just walking down the road that, we see them now all the time, right? That just doesn't happen in cities.
Wow.
Or it doesn't happen as frequently. And
no.
Of course, the people that we work with, we didn't launch our own business when we first moved here. We were here and I was working remotely for Mozilla for the first year and a half. And then I went on mat leave. And so our business is still relatively young. But most of the business that we have had so far in our first year, just because of the way that we've launched things, I think, is local. So people, again, friends and people that have come out to our local events, our local creative meetup series is all just people in town. So yeah, it's had an impact because that's just those are the immediate resources available to us. But it's also, I think the change in lifestyle has been pretty significant. Things slow down. We're still very busy, but things slow down in terms of people will come to your door. Like we've had literally people come to our doorstep and knock on our door and say, thank you for running this creative event series. Thank you for running Paris lectures. And that, that's kind of cool because they just appreciated what we brought to the community so much. And we're grateful as well for that kind of feedback. It's really feels quite precious.
Yeah, absolutely. How cool is that you have people actually coming to your house to thank you in person, not just like texting you or, dropping you an email or whatever. Like that's pretty neat. I love that.
Yeah. I think it's also just being in Paris has made us realize that you can find something interesting or creatively inspiring really wherever you are. That we started a blog about our experiences exploring everywhere here. And again, the kind of feedback we were getting was, I've lived here for 35 years and I've never heard of that place. I can't believe you're discovering all these crazy places and I've lived here for so long and have never been there. But it's all about keeping an open mind and seeing things with fresh eyes. And you can really do that anywhere. It doesn't have to be a beautiful small town, which I am partial to believe Paris is. We've got rivers running through it. It really is pretty, but it could be the suburbs anywhere. It really is just your perspective and what kind of history you dig out. History is a big source of inspiration for us. Every place has its people and its history. And those are the things that make it fascinating and authentic and real, I think.
Yeah. And I know architecture is a big part of the inspiration around there as well. It seems like a lot of older architecture and even the home you guys moved into, you said that it was built in the 1850s and it was used as a funeral home in the 1970s.
Yeah.
Now that is fascinating, Cassie. Were you guys scared of ghosts, and how many thousands of times have you been asked this?
I have been asked a lot, but We're not really ghost people. Although it's kind of fun if we have people come stay with us who are ghost people. They have to be prepared for a little bit of joking and knocking on windows and that sort of thing.
Oh man, you could have an interesting Halloween party there for sure.
Well, yes, I have wanted to really deck out the front yard with gravestones and things, but Mark says it might be a little insensitive.
Oh. A little too meta.
But we're working up to it.
Nice.
I would love that. Also, our kids are young, but once they're older, I think it would be really fun to have the spookiest house in town.
Oh yeah, there you go. There's something you could start planning toward.
Yeah. Architecture here is super interesting. There's cobblestone buildings. It's known as the cobblestone capital of the world, which is just people with this architect, Levi Botten, would hire little kids basically to go down to the river and collect these fist-sized stones. And then he would lay them horizontally into the exterior of the buildings in rows. So it has this really interesting look to them. And it's so time intensive to have done, but it's really unique. And there's 13 of them in Paris. I don't know how many. I think the only other ones are somewhere in New England. So that's really interesting. But I think for me, what's even more interesting than that those are here is that nobody really knows about it and nobody's really preserving them. And it makes me feel like anything that we can do here to raise awareness around them and to encourage the protection of them makes me feel important, like we have a role to play and that we can have an impact on something, which to me is just a really important feeling. I don't like spinning my wheels or feeling like I'm doing something that isn't important. There probably could be nothing that frustrates me more than that feeling. So the small town fits me in that way.
I love that. And I like that you and your husband have taken on this. Nobody asked you to do this. Nobody, nobody's like saying, oh, you got to do this. But you guys were inspired enough to do this. And it's really bringing that awareness, like you said, to this town, this small town, but with so much to offer. And maybe the flip side is that a ton of people are going to start moving there and overpopulating it now that you guys are making it so awesome.
Well, I'm not going to lie. That is a concern. People are definitely complaining about it. And there's a designer, I don't know if you've heard of them, Chip and Pepper. They made a designer jeans brand in the 80s. It was the 80s. They kind of started, they're from, I want to say Manitoba or Winnipeg, maybe. They started out of their van. They moved down to LA and started selling these jeans out of their van. And they've become like a run, or in the 80s, they were really, really popular. And then so they've kind of matured and created more fashion brands. And one of them, he married somebody from Paris or from this area. And when they got divorced, she moved back here with the kids. And so he set up a temporary home in Paris. So this millionaire jeans designer setting up. And he decided to open a new brand here called Paris Surf. And it's like a joint pizza shop and selling these fancy $200 jeans, and which really just does not suit the local sentiment. People are very cautious with money. I don't see people spending more than $80 on a pair of jeans. But the fact that this is here and this sleepy little town was so absurd and strange that we wrote about it on our blog. And so one of the comments that we had, I think the article started out like, Paris Surf has no business being in Paris. But if you went on to read it, it was like, well, this is why it's so, frankly, weird and absurd that this is here. But the person just read the first line and they were like, why is Jane and Jury get to decide who can start a business in Paris? And it was kind of very vitriolic and, just the internet, right?
Geez.
But there's a lot of that in small towns, and you do have to be careful about what you say because it's remembered for a long time. And there's certainly a lot of people who are not that happy about us sharing local secrets. So yeah, but I don't know. It is what it is. We are certainly not the reason why the town is growing, and we're part of that growth. So I think that if you're going to be a part of something, you might as well add a positive contribution to it. And, kind of just is what it is. Nobody likes change.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think it's great you guys are doing that. But tell us your origin story, Cassie. What inspired you to pursue a career in this exciting, challenging, and ever-evolving field?
I went to University of Florida, and I had, mainly because I got a scholarship and could go for free. I think that, it's staying in state. So I grew up in Florida, and I could stay in state and go to school at a state university for zero money. So I did that, and I was attracted to the art program. And so I started out studying painting and more classical art. And then I had a teacher that suggested, why don't you look at graphic design? And I did a little bit, and I discovered it was all about both words and pictures. And that was just perfect for me because I had always liked writing. I'd always liked art. And so the program that I enrolled in was amazing. It still is amazing. The School of Art was 1,200, but the graphic design program was only 30 students. It was a 2-year thing. It's pretty competitive to get into. And then you had a 24/7 studio at your access. And so I just really loved the challenge of that. It suited my way of thinking, which was, artistic and poetic, but also wanting to be useful and to help people. So I felt like the service part of my brain and the problem solving part of my brain and the poetic expressive part of my brain, all of those were being met by graphic design. So that's what I got a degree in, was graphic design. And then I just naturally gravitated toward technology and working on the web. And then over the last, 15 years or so, have seen a lot of the job titles change, but the core offerings and the skill sets that I've needed have really just been honed over the years and not really changed that much because I haven't gone into the code side of things, but more just graphic design thinking, user experience design. It all has kind of been, in my mind and in my experience, the same bucket. So then after, this may be going into too much depth, but after graphic design, I took an exchange program my last semester in England because I just had never traveled outside of the States and I really wanted to go see the world. And so I enrolled at the University of Leeds and did an exchange program there. I ended up getting a job in London and working for a small design company there, web design, and working with big brands and everything. And then I kind of flirted around agency world and small digital boutiques. And then I moved to Toronto and then worked in a larger advertising agency and hated that. And I imagine we'll get back to this, but then I took a break and worked in healthcare, worked on my own writing and creative endeavors. And then I began at Mozilla. So that's kind of where I'm at now, because after Mozilla, I started Gene and Jury, and that wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, the Mozilla opportunity, that seemed like a really great opportunity for you in your career, like the design director for Mozilla Foundation. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Like, how did that happen? Like, I know that's a series of steps that brought you to that place, but how did that open up for you, that opportunity? Like, how did that come about? I'm really curious.
Yeah, sure. I want to kind of change your question around because I don't think it did open up for me. I think I opened it up.
Oh,
and
yes.
I don't want to take complete credit for that, but it was definitely a case of building my own job role. And so I started as a UX designer at Mozilla Foundation. I was working in healthcare. I was actually newly pregnant and I really hated where I was at. And so I needed to get out of there and I needed to find something that I was going to like and want to come back to after I had a baby. So I worked really, really hard to get the attention of people there. And it took many, many emails. It took lots of resourcefulness and trying to find other people I knew in my community that worked there. And thankfully, I was already a part of the Toronto scene a bit, so that I had some connections there. But it took some persistence to get my first interview. And then once I got my interview, I think I was in the door, and it was really just a matter of figuring out where my skills would best be used and where I could, get the most enjoyment out of the work. So I interviewed really with both the foundation and the corporation side. And the foundation side, so I don't know, do I need to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, yeah. So Mozilla is a lot of people don't know this, but it's kind of got two sides to it. The corporation side, which builds Firefox, and the foundation side, which does more of the nonprofit advocacy stuff, and previously a little bit more digital literacy stuff. So they don't do so much of that anymore, I don't think. But so I really decided to go toward the nonprofit side because I felt like I wanted to have a little bit more impact there. And it was a smaller team. It was scrappier. And again, I felt like I could do more there. So over the course of that year before I had my baby, the 9 months really, I really kind of built up more of a design culture. It was very, very technical at the time. I worked mostly with developers. There was one other designer who was really only designer half-time, and tried to educate people really on what was possible with design. And in doing that, I think I built a bit more of a reputation. I built rapport with lots of different people. And so when I returned from my mat leave, it was kind of a clear step into more of a lead position. So then I led a team of front-end designers and UX designers. And then when things were shifting around again within the team, I sort of put my hand up and said, I really think that a design director position would give ownership to the work. It would make for a more productive team. And simultaneously, someone was doing that on the engineering side too. So we teamed up, and it just kind of, it worked. It fell into place. So yeah, it was an excellent, excellent opportunity for me. And it really, I believe, catapulted my career. Not just the name recognition of Mozilla, although I think that's a part of it, but also the amount of experience I got. I was really thrown into the fire. I mean, really looking back, I had no right to become design director of anything. But I think at the same time, I had a little bit of the strategy that was needed. I had a little bit of the technical ability that was needed. Mm-hmm. I could see big picture stuff. So I was suited for it in that way. But I really had no management experience, right? So I learned a lot when I was there and grew in a lot of different ways and figured out a lot about myself and what I needed and wanted as a creative person.
That's so cool. I love that you just jumped into this and you went after it too, like you said. And thank you for correcting me on that. Like, it didn't open up for you. You opened up that door. And I think there's just a lot of takeaway in that. It's don't wait for something to fall in your lap. Like, I mean, I think about the American Idol and like The Voice, those contests where it's like, pick me, it just brings me back to like elementary school playground where it's like, you just want to get picked to be on the team. And, it's like, no, prove yourself, prove your value, right, and go after it. Right.
Yeah.
I just love that for sure.
Yeah. That's something I really, really want to teach my daughters, is that because I think the landscape has changed so much from when our parents were growing up. It really was pick me. And there were so many gatekeepers that you had to get around. And that's definitely still the case, right? There's so much privilege and privilege that we don't even know we have. But at the same time, there are so many opportunities as well for you to just do your own thing, find your own community, and to determine your own success. So what your own metrics for success. It doesn't have to be a design director for a large tech company, right? It can be, and I've always been a proponent as well. I've done a lot of hiring and a lot of advice for friends who need jobs. And I always say, your resume, is just what you shape. It's the story that you decide to tell. It's not great because somebody else said it was great. It's great because of what you got out of it and how you decide to frame your experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sure does. I love that. So I'm curious, Cassie, about your role as a director, as a manager. And again, as you said, like, this was like you were thrown into the fire, but you kind of allowed yourself, you threw yourself into the fire of this thing and were willing to take on all those responsibilities of kind of learning on the job, and learning how to lead. I mean, that's certainly something that it takes practice, it takes time. And so first of all, kudos to you for jumping into such a, an important role and taking it on head first. But I'm curious too, like, I guess a couple of questions I have about this is one, were you worried about not getting your hands dirty as much? I know that when you become a manager of design as a designer, that becomes really more 80-20 kind of thing where like maybe 80% of it is more managing your people and kind of the strategy. And then 20%, if even, is getting your hands dirty with design. Was that a concern for you? How did you mitigate that as a creative person?
It for sure was a concern. And I mean, there's a lot of nuance here because having kids makes everything so nuanced. But when I
totally identify.
When I returned though from my mat leave, right, I was still breastfeeding. I was still very hands-on with my daughter, even though I was working full time again. And so I felt like the time that I had to do things had changed, the available time. And obviously, this is in hindsight. It took me a long, long time to realize this about myself and about how my initiatives and priorities had changed. But I had much less time to really get into the headspace that you need to find the flow for creative and technical work. And so it really suited me to be a little bit more of a project manager role, to provide direction, overarching vision, and also to just provide feedback for a team versus getting into the intricacies of the work itself. And I'm not saying I enjoyed that just as much, because ultimately I don't think I did. And that's why I've gone back to doing more design work and starting our own business, was so that I could more hands-on and get back into that realm of things. But I think it's a really common thing that new design managers do, is to take on the management role, but try to keep their hands in the work as well. And so you end up doing more than is humanly possible, or trying to, and then you end up failing on every front. And I certainly did that. I really, truly think I did. And I learned from it. And I don't think I'd do that again. So if I were to go into management again, it would have to be a very clear, decisive thing. And, I would have a better idea of what I was getting myself into. But, trying to still design and make things and also manage people is just too much. For that scale of things, it was just too much. And so I don't think I was a wonderful manager, and I don't think I was a wonderful designer during that time. And thank goodness that they gave me the opportunity anyway, because I learned so much.
I love your humility, Cassie. I want to ask you, what was your biggest lesson that you learned as a design leader, leading people in a design strategy at Mozilla? What's your biggest lesson?
Oh, I don't know about biggest. I mean, that was certainly one of them, was that I like to believe that I can do it all, and I really couldn't. But let's see, in terms of managing people, this is like management 101, but I really learned that you cannot just tell people what to do, that you really have to lead people to a decision, to get people on board with your vision. And I apply that lesson today, even with my family. When my family can't decide where to go out to eat or something, you got to convince them. You got to tell them a story about the last time you were at that restaurant, and you got to make them want to go and eat there with you. It's the same kind of thing with design direction. And because when, I've been a part of those teams, and I don't know why it's so easy to forget, because it wasn't that long ago that I was really doing the work and being told what to do 24/7 as well. When you're in that and you're just being told what to do and you feel like you don't have any ownership over it, of course that feels and of course, you're not going to be as responsive or that into it. But when you feel like you're a part of the team and you're making those decisions together, that is probably the best momentum you can create for your team. And then ultimately, management was about removing hurdles and getting out of people's way, letting them, building the kind of scenarios where they could use their strengths to thrive and for your products to thrive. So all of those things were really instructive to me. And I think it's interesting because I'm doing so little of what I used to do then at Mozilla. I'm doing so little of that now. But I think some of those lessons about how to interact with people, how to create systems that, for example, now I'm doing mostly client work. How can I create systems for the clients to use their strengths and to get out of their way? Whereas not just saying, use this logo or use this branding system, right? It's like, it's more working with people and getting them on board with your vision for something so that they can then take it and run with it. I'd say that's probably the biggest skill that I acquired, which I guess is a sort of lesson.
Absolutely. And it's playing the long game too. I think that that's one thing that I've learned and I'm still learning and probably will be learning the rest of my life is, when you're leading people, you really need to invest and you need to not demand that respect. And respect is never demanded. It's always earned.
Right, exactly.
And so that's a big lesson. And I think that some of the worst managers in the world should actually be on a board at an HOA, right?
Yeah.
Like, do this, do that, and it's like, well, wait, what does the other person need? What are their challenges? How can you serve them to help them in that, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing as well is that, you talked about respect. It's so easily lost and so difficult to gain back.
Yes.
And so you have to be really careful and measured in how you respond to things, how you react to stress, how you lead during, stressful conversations. Those things are hard to control and really easy to get wrong. So I learned a little bit more about how to control my own emotions and the way that I say things and present things to people as well.
Those are great lessons. So I want to switch gears here and talk about failure. And I know failure is not a fun topic. It's not something we want to put on our LinkedIn resume, of course, or LinkedIn profile, but it is one of life's greatest teachers. And certainly, to stick with the superhero theme, I think every superhero that we've read about in comics, they've had pretty significant failures, but they've learned from those. And we're all human. So I want to ask you, Cassie, could you tell us a story about maybe what's been one of the biggest ones in your career?
Sure. Well, going back to Mozilla for a second, which is funny because it really is the highlight of my career so far. I guess I'm slowly building it back up with Jane and Jury.
Yeah.
But so far, I'd say Mozilla is a high point on my resume.
Yeah.
And yet, when I started there, I started as a user experience / user interface designer for a product called WebMaker, which is no longer. And I suppose that itself is my biggest failure in that I was the only designer for that. I helped to make the vision for it. Of course, there were other political things going on with it behind the scenes, but I really helped shape that product into what it was. It was designed to help people make things on the web. We were seeing a lot of passivity on Facebook, scrolling, clicking, liking, and it felt like we wanted people to be able to have tools that made making creative things of their own visions online. And so I feel like it had a really big directive. And as a designer, I know now that part of my role would have been to ask even harder questions. And during my time there, I saw it turn from a website and web apps into a mobile app, and then it just got killed. And so I spent a long time, many hours designing that tool, working on that tool, being in meetings, building teams to work on that tool on almost every aspect of it. And to see it die was a hard thing at the time. And now I kill things all the time. It's so much easier now. But at the time it was a big deal. And to see something big with lots of users be killed was kind of hard to see, because you're like, you've got all these people, it's not big enough for the vision of Mozilla. They really wanted to have worldwide impact with millions of users. I can't remember where we ended up, but it was surely over 100,000 users. But still, to see those people who loved the product kind of have to stop using it because we stopped supporting it was difficult, but necessary. So necessary. And I actually see from afar, I see Mozilla doing similar things of stopping doing this and stopping doing that. And while I feel for the teams that aren't no longer able to work on it, I also feel like that probably should have happened in the beginning. And it's going to contribute to a greater success on their part, in my opinion.
Coming soon from Envision, the design collaboration platform used to create the digital products you love. Envision Studio, the world's most powerful screen design tool. Unlock new dimensions of screen design with Envision Studio's new adaptive layout engine, rapid prototyping, advanced animation, shared design systems, and other game-changing features created to help your team design better, faster, together. Clark from Envision says this is the design tool we've always wanted, and we're so excited to share it with you. Visit userdefenders.com/studio to get early access. There's a lot to think about there with sunsetting things, with killing things. And again, it's hard when you're so involved and you've worked so hard to create something and to be a part of creating something. And,
Sure.
But there is a lot of wisdom in doing that. Quite often, especially when you look at the performance and you look at the users and kind of what's happening there, or maybe another opportunity somewhere else that's greater. And so I think that's a really great takeaway for me. And I kind of sometimes I wish Facebook, even though I don't use it very much, I wish that they would sunset their separate message app. Like, why not just let people do it inside of, when you go on your mobile app, like they make you download an extra app if you want to just send private messages.
I know.
Like, certain things you just think like, why does that exist? But anyway, what do you want our listeners to take away from that, Cassie?
Well, just on Facebook, I feel like there's for sure technical reasons for doing that. But anyway,
yeah, I'm sure there is.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, right? Being on the team. And I really do feel, and so many people that work on that product have inherited other people's decisions, right? And having 1 billion users or whatever it's not easy to make changes and get it back on track. So I feel for that. But and I think maybe that's part of the lesson is that as young designers, and I really see it in more junior designers, you get so wrapped up in what you're making that it's hard to take anybody's advice on board. It's hard to accept feedback. It's hard to accept criticism for sure. And then as you get older and you just kind of want to go home and have dinner with your family and you don't want to work until 10 o'clock at night or whatever at the office or come in on weekends, you kind of start to let go of that attachment to the things that you're making. And I think that the sweet spot is really somewhere in between where you can be passionate and work your ass off on things, 9 to 5 and be balanced, but also you really still care about it. But you can also, at the end of the day, put it down, let it go, or you can accept people's feedback and incorporate that, and your product will be better for it. And I use product loosely, right? I'm meaning just the things that we build, the things that we make, things that we invest ourselves into. It's not a concrete thing, and that's life. That's being a human. There is no, you must be A or you must be B. It's really somewhere in the middle that the sweet spot is going to lie.
Oh, that's so good, Cassie. It makes me think of, I interviewed Golden Krishna, who wrote a book called The Best Interface is No Interface. And one of the questions, and I'm going to ask you this question, Cassie, as well, but the question I asked him was, what's your best advice for aspiring UX superheroes? And he said, your stuff isn't good enough and it never will be.
That's awesome. Can I just use that?
No. But I wanted to share that because he kind of went on, because at first I was like, what? Like, come on, tell me there's more. And he's like, yeah, there's more. He's like, we're designers and we want to make things better. We're designers because we want to make things better. And even though something's really good now, it could be better in the future. And right. And so that's kind of, I think the point is that we should always be striving to make things better. And frankly, that can also mean killing something that's not good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember who wrote this originally, but I remember coming across an article, this was pre-Medium, about a developer describing their experience and why they had the outlook that they had on life, which is that they spend 90 to 95% of their time every day staring at a list of things that are wrong with their work, bugs that they have to fix. And I felt similarly at the time that design was the same. It's like you're looking for holes in your work. You're trying to critique your own work. You're being self-critical. You're trying to make it better.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a positive way of saying that you're constantly criticizing your own stuff.
Yeah.
You have to in order to grow and to do what you have to do. Otherwise, you would just open up a file and make your thing and then be done with it, right? You wouldn't be able to improve upon it. So it's a necessary evil.
Yeah.
But it's also, I don't know where I'm going with that. But yeah, I definitely feel similar. You're never done. Your work is never done, which is a privilege too, right? I don't think designers will ever be out of work. That there's a fear of automation. And certainly I don't know perhaps enough about it, but I think that certain front-end tasks might be automated. But as a designer, and over the years, I mentioned, job titles changing so much. The user experience design was not even a thing when I started, when I'm sure a lot of the people you've interviewed. So how do you make a long life's career out of this work. It's you're flexible, you're adaptable, and you take your core skills and keep applying those, which to me is, as a designer, it's just the ability to ask questions. It's to want to learn more and to find out how you can help. And then what becomes clear to me is that design is a way of thinking that not everyone has developed. It's a way of looking at the problem. It's a willingness to learn new technologies and to try things out.
Absolutely agree. And I think, adding to what you just said, you said it's a necessary evil. It's a necessary evil and a necessary good, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Being able to do that. And I think that I want to just also say that I think there's an opportunity right now for a UI designer at the Hawaiian government.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah.
The Hawaiian government branch.
I totally missed that. I was on vacation when that happened, so I wasn't paying attention.
Defenders, you probably know what I'm talking about, but it's like the whole, I guess there's a drop-down menu that allows a nuclear warning to go to everybody's phones, kind of like an Amber Alert, but yet there's but in this case, it's like a nuclear warhead coming at you. So somebody clicked the wrong button. So I know, and that's all the rage. Like I just put a blog post about, kind of similar about what we're talking about designers using our stuff so we can make it better for other people. But I don't think that's going to get any traction amidst all of this usability stuff with Hawaii.
Well,
but yeah, that's just crazy.
What's crazy to me is that they just didn't have the checks in place. I mean, so, I mentioned that I worked in healthcare for a time. And so I actually worked on a human factors team, which is kind of a special area of knowledge, which came from airplane design and designing the interface to fly planes. And then
Alphonse Chapanis.
Sure. I don't know who that is, but
Oh, he was basically the first psychologist to kind of affect UX. I think technically he could be the first UX designer.
Okay.
Because he was brought in the aviation. And the only reason this is so fresh in my mind, I just was reading about this yesterday. He was brought in because pilots kept crashing these planes. And he came in and realized by observation, and he realized that the controls for the landing gears and the flaps were almost identical. And at the critical moment, instead of hitting landing gears, the pilots are hitting flaps and they were crashing. And so he basically did put a circle on, use haptic feedback, which was really smart because they didn't have automation then. He used haptic feedback. He put a circle kind of texture on top of the landing gear control, and he put a triangle on top of the flaps control, and it solved the problem. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's actually really sad to think about, that design can lose lives.
Yeah.
That's certainly not true of most of the work that we do, but occasionally it's true. And that's why I enjoyed working in healthcare, was because the work felt so impactful, and you could actually lose lives, really, or gain lives. You could help people. Yeah. So I worked in a little lab designing apps, really mobile apps for self-care of chronic disease. And, healthcare is the long game. You really kind of test things for about 7 years before you see any design in practice, but like out in the real world. Yeah. But over that time, you test and test and test. And so we had a human factors testing lab, and you get to see people using it, and they do studies before, the general population is allowed to use it. So we did an app for for diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and saw that teenagers who were using this app could actually track their diabetes better by using this. So, that was kind of cool. But on the same...
Oh, yeah. I remember reading about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on the same side, right? Like you can design interface, whether it's for mission control or, public population in Hawaii being warned about a incoming missile, or a medical device interface where it really, can... save one life or take one life. And so I don't know. I enjoyed that part of it. It was just a difficult scene to work within.
Yeah. I have to swipe to confirm buying coffee filters from Amazon, but in order to warn people about a nuclear warhead, it's just one click away, people.
Yeah. I actually think that problem is worth discussing. There are, when I worked in healthcare, I started out at that job thinking that I was going to stay there forever. And I had found my life's work. I had found my mission, because they so clearly needed my help.
Oh, yeah.
So I started a blog. I was writing about all the things that I was learning. And one of the main things I was doing was trying to get other designers interested in healthcare, trying to make them see that they could be useful here. And we really had a difficult time hiring new designers. And part of it was that the work just wasn't seen as sexy. And so you get everybody vying for positions at these large tech companies and nobody doing the hard work of government or education or healthcare. So, I think that we have a bit of an obligation to consider those kinds of positions as well, and especially people in education, right? If you take your entire design class scores of what kinds of jobs could they have when they graduate, and you only take them to ad agencies, I don't know if we're, doing them a disservice, because those kinds of jobs can be fulfilling. Of course, I say all this with a certain amount of humility because I've left healthcare and I figured out that it wasn't for me. But I also feel like I did my time in a way.
Yeah.
But I really, really respect people who work in that arena. They're usually super smart, passionate people, and they just need they need more people because these are hard problems that are being solved. I mean, you'd think it wouldn't be that hard to put a check in place, though, for that mission, for that missile message.
Right. Even just like a simple JavaScript pop-up. Like, are you sure you want to set off a nuclear warning?
Yeah. Seems pretty basic. Yeah.
So there's a lot of learnings. I know that this is, and there's a lot of conversations. So I think it's good that it happened and nothing happened, right? It's good that it wasn't real and that now that can be fixed, which is great. And a lot of learning from this for sure.
Yeah.
So, Cassie, this next question is, and I'm going to kind of give you a little backstory here because I actually adopted this question from you.
Oh.
Which is interesting, yeah, because when I first started the show 2 years ago, I was kind of doing research, trying to find super guests to be on the show. And I found you. I think I stumbled across you back then, and I was reading about you, and I actually saw that part of your interview process at Mozilla, you had a series of questions you would ask potential designers to join the team. And I think this is one of the questions that you asked your designers. And I was like, that's a great question, and it fits my theme. So here it goes. What's your design superpower?
Oh, God, did I ask that?
I'm pretty sure it was you.
Oh, God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to everyone.
It's one of my favorite questions to ask my guests. So thank you, Cassie.
Well, I do think that there's a value in knowing what you're good at. And a lot of people cannot answer that question, right? You don't like, oh yeah, I just, I show up at work every day and I do what I'm told. And no, that's not what I want from a designer that's on my team. Yeah. I would want somebody that kind of knows what they're good at and at the same time knows what they're bad at so that we can create a more rounded team. At least I'm talking as a manager right now, but
sure. No, that's good.
But it's useful in your own career as well too. Just knowing where you want to go, what kinds of skills you want to develop, what kinds of things you really don't want to do. That can be as useful as knowing what you want to do. So anyway, I'm not answering your question, but I will try now.
No, this is good.
I will try. Okay, so my design superpower, I really think that it's being able to juggle a lot of things at once. And that applies to taking in lots of information from lots of different sources, whether that's working with many different stakeholders or working on large projects where I've got, I'm being informed by different things that are happening at the same time. Or if it's just working on lots of different projects and clients at the same time. I never felt like my time working for someone else was unproductive. I was always finding something to do, and I could hold lots of different things in my head at once. Doesn't mean it stays there. Once I don't need it anymore, I toss it and I have a terrible memory.
Sure.
But when I'm in something and I'm working on it, I can manage complexity. So I don't think that that's something everyone can do where, you're invested in the details, but you also understand big picture. And so being able to hold both of those things at once is important to me and feels special.
That's good. And I was thinking about the defenders listening, and many of them are really fairly new on their design journey. And I think that what you said in the beginning about knowing what you're good at is a really great takeaway, Defenders, because I think that it's often, we do kind of get heads down in our work and we just kind of get caught up in our own environments and maybe we don't get introspective enough. And I know this personally because I've been on a couple of different things like podcasts and like AMAs, Ask Me Anythings. And I had to actually step away and actually get a little more introspective and go, what do I believe or about this? Or what are my values? Or what is my superpower? What am I good at? Like those are really good things to ask yourself. And if you don't know, what you can also do is ask the people around you. Ask the folks around you that spend a lot of time with you. Hey, what am I really good at? What do you like? If you had a question for me, like what would it be surrounding that I can help you with? And I think once you kind of get, if you can't figure it out yourself, the people around you know you really well too, and they can at least help inform some of that. So, what would you say to that, Cassie?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, that was always a part of our our annual review process at Mozilla was a kind of a 360 view. So we would get surveys completed by people we worked for, people who worked for us, our peers, and you would have a 360 view of what you were doing well and what you could improve on. So yeah, I think that's worthwhile. But I think at the end of the day as well, it's what do you enjoy doing? Because you can be good at lots of different things. You can be terrible at lots of different things, but you can be terrible at something and still really enjoy it. And I just think that the emphasis we have placed on success and what success means and looks like is a little bit misguided. And, for example, there's so much emphasis on having a good salary, and money is just, the older I get, it's the more important it gets for sure, but it's also overrated. You can certainly have too much of it, in my opinion. And of course you can have too little of it too. But, it's again, finding that sweet spot. It's how much do you enjoy doing this? Is it worthwhile? Maybe another good example is the framing that I do. So it's picture framing, right? It's cutting glass and cutting molding and assembling frames. It's really not very profitable. The cost of materials is really high. The amount of time that I spend on it, I make like $20 an hour, which is like our design fee is, at least 5 times that.
Wow.
It's like way more than 5 times that. But right, it's not a profitable part of my business, but I enjoy it because it keeps me sane. It gets me working with my hands.
Yeah.
I enjoy, at the end of the day, having something concrete that I've made. I think a lot of digital designers also make concrete things like T-shirts or books or whatever for that same reason. So it's like, you have to assess what is important to you at the same time as assessing what are you good at, because it's all tied together.
Hi, I'm Alexa Roman. I'm a growth and product designer at Burner, and I fight for the users. You're listening to the User Defenders podcast with Jason Ogle.
That's really interesting that you said that about kind of just getting offline and kind of getting away from your 9 to 5 and, having something at least like a cathartic kind of thing you do, especially as a creative person. It's probably going to have some sort of creativity attached to it or outlet. But I think that's a really great takeaway, Cassie, and especially in the digital age we live in. And I mean, we spend maybe too much time in front of screens now. And I get the sense from you, Cassie, and I don't know this for sure, but I get the sense from you that you've become really good at managing that, at being able to just really step away and just cut things off with, balance that out really well, especially having a family and, having your own business and your hobbies and things like that. So, but I think that I feel like there's a lot there to really take in, like and do what you enjoy. Don't just do what you're good at. Cultivate and foster what you enjoy too. And even if it's not to make a living, maybe it's something you'll get better at, and eventually you will make a living at it. You may end up hating it later because it becomes your job, but
yeah, that's absolutely true.
Right?
Yeah,
balance it out.
It happens, but then you get to start something new, and that's kind of the beauty of today's economy is that you can have a career change. I know we get stuck thinking that we're going to be doing the same thing when we're 60. We're not. It's all going to be different. So just embrace that. That's my opinion. Although I think like the balance thing, that's just the stage of life that I'm at. Because if I'm not balancing things, if I'm not letting some things go, I'm just not getting any sleep. I mean, literally before the holidays, I was getting 4 hours of sleep a night. That's just not, that's not sustainable. No, I'm gonna get cancer, and I'm not, I'm certainly not gonna be my best self. And so I think that just this with two little kids under 4, that's just where I'm at right now. And you still got to work, right? Like you still got to maintain that, or at least I want to be productive and I want to make stuff. Not that like you could take a break as well. I'm not saying like some people choose to do that and that's totally fine as well. But for me, the balance that I have with my husband, running our own business, balancing childcare with work, it satisfies all the different parts of my brain. And if I'm not doing all of those things, then I'm sacrificing time with family or I'm sacrificing my sleep. And I don't want to let those things go right now because it's finite and it's not going to be here forever. And I'm reminded of that time and time again. And as I get older, that just becomes something that it's just a bigger and bigger priority. And I have to appreciate and respect that for what it is. It's out of my hands, but that's the stage of life that I'm at. And so, the advice from a lot of go-get-em designers is really just don't sleep, focus on just do your work and make sacrifices for it. And I think that that's true at a certain extent. And I think I've been there and I've done that. And I don't need to do it my entire life. Yeah. And maybe I'll be back there again later, but I'm certainly not there now. And I don't think you can do it 24/7 for your entire career and have that be sustainable.
Yeah, fully agree. And I think that the theme that I'm getting, Cassie, from our conversation is know your values and fight for them. Write them down. Write down your values. What do you believe in? What matters to you? What do you hope to do and achieve through the work you're doing? And what kind of difference do you want to make? And just fight for that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And know as well that they're going to change. You can periodically reassess because what was important to me 10 years ago is not the same thing that's important today. And I'm glad that I have been true to the values that I've had at the time that have helped me make certain decisions, like leaving certain jobs and starting new ones or starting our own business. All of that has come from a change in values. And I mean, the same basic system stays the same. You're still kind of the same person, but those things that you value and need at the time will change. But yeah, I agree. Know yourself and challenge yourself.
So let's wrap up the show with imparting of superpowers. And this is kind of along the lines of what we were just talking about with, habits of success. And I know success is defined differently by others, but for you, Cassie, what's one habit you believe contributes to your success?
This is really concrete, which I hope is helpful. I reply to emails almost as soon as they come in. Now, you might have a different perspective on that because it took me a while to reply to yours. But for the most part, I reply to emails as they come in. And that just is because I have a scattered brain. I'm disorganized. I try to actually create systems that might make me seem like I'm more organized than I am. But email is just one of those things. If I don't respond to people right away, I usually won't at all. So I do try to do that. And that's something that I developed early on in my career. And it would not work for everybody. But for me, it's a way of staying organized and on top of things.
Why is that important, Cassie?
It's a good question. Because it's not necessarily about responding to people's requests. It's not necessarily about pleasing other people. It's more about how it makes me feel. It's like the one thing that I need to do to not get distracted is to make sure that I have a clear inbox. It's like when you walk into a house and for some people, it's really overwhelming for them if the dishes aren't done and the bed's not made, that kind of thing. For me, I couldn't care less about those things, but I really don't like having 30 or even 13 emails sitting in my inbox and unread. So I'm not the kind of person that picks up my phone when I first wake up. I really kind of have pretty good discipline about that.
Yeah.
But when I do look at it and something needs to be done, I usually try to do that right away, or at least put it into the system so that it can get done. So I'll add it to my to-do list or something like that, put it on the calendar, at least deal with it in some way. Why is it important though? I think it's just because for me, it's really easy to get disorganized, and it's really hard to work in today's environment, which is more and more technology based, if somebody is not communicative. And so for me, if somebody messages me or sends me an email or sends me a calendar request, if I don't respond to it, I feel rude. And I think that is ultimately what it's about is, there's a little bit of self-care in there, a little bit of creating the kind of environment that I need to work and be productive. There's also a little bit of respect for the people that I'm working with and that want to engage with me, and a communication kind of respect, which is that, like, if somebody walked up to you on the street, you wouldn't just ignore them, right? Would you? Maybe, but probably not. Probably not. You'd see their eyes, you'd see their face, you'd see what they're asking you, and you would try to help them. I feel like in today's world, and maybe it was working remotely for 2 years for Mozilla that really did this to me, but I feel like the only modes of communication that you often have with people, whether it's clients or colleagues, is online. And so if we can bring more of that politeness to those forms, then, I think the world will be better for it. I think we'll certainly be happier for it, and the relationships will be better, because we're already up against a huge hurdle with technology. It's not the same as talking face to face. So at least you can be polite, right? That's one of my favorite articles was by Paul Ford, is How to Be Polite. I love that. That's something to link to.
That sounds worthy of a link. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. And I can't tell you how frustrated I get, even just through text messaging. Like when I text somebody, and especially when I know they've read it, like,
right?
I know you read my message, and why aren't you responding to me? Darn it. And, you start going into a bad place, and bitterness is like taking the pill and expecting the other person to die. It's taking the poison, right? And it's just, it's a prison we create around ourselves. And so I and I have tendencies. I do. I confess. I have tendencies to let that happen. And so for me, that's been a big struggle for me as well. So I admire your answer as far as just wanting to let people know, like, they matter, because it is. It's like that respect thing we were talking about earlier. It's like, I do respect you. That's why I'm responding to you as soon as I can.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think it's great. Having a certain empathy for their situation as well.
Yeah, very much so. What's your most invincible UX resource or tool you can recommend to our listeners, Cassie?
So you're looking for websites, or
it could be anything. It could be anything. It could be soft skill.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. I feel like a lot of what I've given you so far has been kind of soft and in some way ethereal, but that's what I have more of, which is
I like that though.
The tool, it is a certain resourcefulness. It's the ability to ask questions, right? It's the ability to connect to people as humans.
Yeah.
If you can talk to somebody and make them feel like you are actually listening, that is so valuable. It's so valuable to win buy-in, to learn more about their perspective, to learn that, in turn contributes to your work. So, I mean, it's amazing how anxious people get talking to other people when all they really have to do is ask questions. You just have to ask questions, and you don't have to have a follow-up question. Just be curious about what they're saying. Yeah, I think that's time and time again. I mentioned this already, but over the course of my career and as a designer, that's the thing. That's always the thing that is valuable, is asking questions. Whether as an outsider or an insider who's intimately familiar with what it is you're building or making, asking the hard questions is something that people don't do, or they don't realize it. They don't have the same questions as you. So if you can develop your insatiable curiosity, I think that's so, so important. And that, at the same time, I think in parallel, that's being aware of your humanity and your connection to other people's humanity. That's the poetic side of me talking, I think.
No, I love it. I love it, Cassie. And you have children, you have daughters, and you have a 4-year-old daughter. So do I. And I mean, I'm sure of it, that she inspires you in that way of curiosity. Like, how many questions does she ask you a day, right? Like, I would be surprised.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God. And you know what?
It's
actually have to be, it is inspiring. And I also have to be really careful because answering a 4-year-old's questions is often just like, I already said the answer. Like, why aren't you listening? But
it's easy to get frustrated
too. It's easy to get frustrated. It's easy to kind of get to a point where you're like, stop asking questions, but you don't actually want them to stop, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's hard. Parenting is hard.
It is so hard. And so I admire you and your husband and how great of parents you are and the values that you guys set so much so for your kids. And
I try.
It's an incredible investment. But yeah, so my last question for you, Cassie, and this is one of my favorites. It's, what's your best advice for aspiring UX superheroes?
Mm-hmm. I remember at a portfolio review when I was still in school, we used to have kind of existing professionals come and they would give us advice and feedback on our portfolios. And I remember we were kind of paired up because they didn't have time to go through everyone, but we were paired up. And the person I was with had a question about what they should do after they graduate. And should they take some time off and travel, or should they put together their portfolio and get a job right away and try and get more and more experience? And the designer, I think it might have actually been Steve Frickholm from Herman Miller. I love him. He's got the greatest beard, but also the greatest mind.
I like him already.
Yeah, he's amazing. I've seen him once again. I think he spoke somewhere. Anyway, might have been Creative Mornings. But he said, travel. For the love of God, travel. And, you know, I grew up in Florida. I lived in England. I lived in Toronto. And now I'm in Paris. Who knows where I will end up in the next decade. But I really think that seeing other people's viewpoints, seeing the way other people live, being immersed in other cultures is so, so valuable. And it's not just when you're working on a product, which, you know, I did at Mozilla. We worked on stuff that was global. It's so valuable for that. But it's also just understanding who you are, how you fit into the world, what your work contributes to the world. I don't know if there's anything better that you can do to open your eyes to that other than travel. So if you have to put off work for a year and go travel, if you have to kind of make sacrifices for, I don't know, maybe you don't have a phone, or maybe you have a really crappy phone plan for a year so that you can save up and do things with that money that allow you to get perspective from other places. I think that's really, really valuable, especially when you're young, because it gets harder and harder to do as you get older and more tied down. So that would be my thing, is travel. Don't worry about your resume. Just go out and live life and be able to talk about that when you come back and are ready to get your job.
So good, Cassie. I love that advice. And what better way to continue to build your empathy levels and just to be a better human than to just see how other people live. Mm-hmm. I think that we just get so caught up, especially in America. We just get so caught up in our little bubbles and our comfort zones. And we don't realize that there's a whole world out there and people are living so much differently than we are. And we may even be designing for these people. Yeah,
it's so true. It's so true. When I first moved to England and lived in London, you know, one of the easiest ways to make that affordable is to live with lots of roommates. So I had like 8 roommates in a tiny little flat.
Oh, wow.
So I lived with a guy from Spain and someone from Norway and a Swedish guy and someone from Italy. And I remember I always used to talk about, like, they would talk about where they were from. And I found it so interesting. And then I'd say, okay, it's my turn. I'm going to talk about Florida. And like every single one of them had been to Florida. They'd all grown up watching American culture on TV. And I was so ignorant to that fact that I just, had no idea how pervasive American culture was around the world and how little I knew about their worlds.
Wow.
And so it was a real eye opener. And I definitely see that in American culture still today. And I'm not saying everyone is like that. There's certainly so many well-traveled Americans, but I think we could stand a little bit more understanding global perspective, global histories, because it's not always taught as well, right? It's not taught in the school systems. And so, we need to do a little bit of self-education there.
Absolutely. Well, Cassie, this has been so incredible. I can't thank you enough for being here, and I am not disappointed in the least. I had high expectations for our time, Cassie. I'll be honest with you, and you've exceeded my expectations greatly.
Oh, Excellent.
And I know the Defenders listening are super inspired as well. This has just been a real deep dive, and I loved it, every moment of it. So I want to thank you so much, Cassie, and just keep doing what you're doing. Just keep inspiring and keep absorbing your environment and the environments of others, and sharing that with us as well, with your talks and with your writing, and just keep designing and creating. And I just want to say, finally, fight on, my friend.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you having me on here. I've really enjoyed it too.
It's important to be a well-rounded designer today and not forget the importance of soft skills, especially tomorrow, knowing that there are robots lining up to take on the automated parts of what we do every day. Know your values and fight for them, and know that they are going to change. Those are just a couple of the many big takeaways from me surrounding the theme of this inspiring interview with Cassie McDaniel. Again, Cassie was 1/3 of my team of Bad Design Avengers at an Event Apart panel in Denver. The other 2/3 consisted of Luke Wroblewski, or Luke W. on the Twitters, and Chris Coyer, aka CSS Man, episode 28. This incredibly powerful live podcast recording is now available for your listening and or viewing pleasure. Please go to userdefenders.com/AEA Denver to check out this super fun, super enlightening session. Please tweet those takeaways. Mention at Cassie Mick and at UserDefenders. That would be so great. I love when you guys and gals start conversations on Twitter and mention what you learned and how the episode added value to your lives and your journey. So please do that. That's awesome. It helps other designers find the podcast as well. I want to thank Eli Jorgensen for the astonishing artwork, and I want to thank Envision for sponsoring this episode. In 2 weeks, I am delighted and thrilled to announce that Steve Portugal, user research legend, not only in his own mind, is going to be joining me on the show. This was such a deep, insightful interview, and Steve spent a lot of extra time with me, which I'm really grateful for. He was so gracious with his time. There's a lot of good stuff. I can't wait to share this with you. So that'll be episode 49, getting close to 50. So that's it. Defenders, thanks so much for listening and telling others about the show and just showing your support in so many different ways, through Twitter, through getting on the Biweekly Bugle, all those things that you do. I just appreciate you so much, more than words can express. So thanks so much. And of course, until next time, fight on, my friends.